So this morning, you saw Donald Trump was pardoning Susan B. Anthony, and everyone was upset, right? Everyone's freaking out on the left. You can see Twitter's always a good place to look if you just see a trend or a hashtag. You can see a lot of good aggregated information there. So you can see tweet after tweet really criticizing the Democrats because they're going after Susan B. Anthony. You can see articles about how Susan B. Anthony wasn't that good. And if you just search Susan B. Anthony not good, you can see a bunch of slanted articles on why it's really stupid to pardon her now, or she shouldn't have been pardoned, or she never needed to be pardoned, or he shouldn't pardon her because it undercuts her value of having gotten charged in the first place. Here, Google is suggesting people that also just ask this question: what bad things did Susan B. Anthony do? Top of the list. Come on. Hey, guys, you should be asking also, what did she do that was bad? How did she impact the world? How did she die? Why did she fight for women's rights? I mean, this is suggested for you to ask. Interesting. Why would you be asking those questions? Don't know, but just interesting. So let's just take a look at a couple. The first article, very interesting headline from the Washington Post. Susan B. Anthony was arrested for voting when women couldn't, and now Trump will pardon her. Well, it would seem like from this headline that they're going to be critical of Trump pardoning her when what she did was illegal at the time that she did it, right? And it starts out just kind of stating facts about Election Day 1872 and what Susan B. Anthony did with her ballot. It then goes on to say, well, there are a lot of historians have closely studied her life that say that this suffragist wouldn't have wanted her conviction overturned because it was a point of pride. It was a badge she wore right here on her arm. She said, I was arrested. I got charged with a felony. So I did it in the name of doing the right thing, in the name of justice. And so even though I was unjustly charged and unrightly, or whatever you want to call it, nope, that you can be a historian and claim that. Oh, I've closely studied her life. I read all of her diaries, and she didn't want to lose that. She really liked being charged. She liked being a felon. She liked being fined, and then not paying the fine, and then being named a felon, and being forced to stand trial. So, to pardon her for it is to give validity to the trial, they say. Well, Trump doesn't have to do that, okay? The federal government at the time did that. History has done that. Our collective American memory has validated her in that case, and Trump is pardoning her, and the left is furious. And you'd have to ask yourself, as an objective human who can speak English and understand common sense and think critically and use discernment, you would want to ask the question, why would the mainstream media and the establishment left go after Donald Trump for pardoning a woman that yesterday and 2 days ago they supported full-throatedly? Here's the next article from the New York Times. This one's real interesting. On the centennial, which is the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, Trump pardons Susan B. Anthony and targets the 2020 election. They can't just let the president have one. They can't just say, hey, forget that it's an election year, and forget that, we're coming up on a bunch of turbulence in the country. Let's just celebrate a 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote, and that's a good thing. And so if the president's going to pardon Susan B. Anthony, the most well-known woman who voted and who rocked the vote for women, who fought for women's suffrage, yeah, you want to just give him that one. But no. And to make it worse, the United States needed women to vote at this time. So she did the right thing. The law was on the wrong side of history at that moment, as it often is, because you realize society leads the charge historically, and the law has to always be playing catch up. And good for it, because if the law led society, we would be under a totalitarian rule. So you can see, if Susan B. Anthony is being pardoned and the left is against it, what does that mean they're against? What does that mean they're against? Don't think about what they're telling you, because anyone can lie. But look at what they're doing, because their actions are the truth. So if they are pissed off that Trump is pardoning Susan B. Anthony, and at the same time they're saying he's targeting the election, maybe you can assume that they are just focused on the election themselves. So, interestingly enough, she's standing in front of this post. There's a number here. It's a 17. Don't know what that means, but it's very interesting that that is the number there at the address. This says, President Trump on Tuesday pardoned Susan B. Anthony, the woman's suffragist who was arrested after voting illegally in 1872 and was fined $100. And if you can imagine at that time, shoot, nowadays that is probably like a $2,500 fine. Maybe it's a little high. Maybe call it a $1,500 fine. It's still got to be astronomically expensive to think, hey, I voted. I don't know that there's necessarily a law prohibiting me from voting. There's not a law that allows me to vote, so I'm going to vote. And she was arrested and fined $100. And he tried to appeal to female voters, this is Trump, on the 100th anniversary today of the 19th Amendment giving them, what do you mean them, the right to vote. Mr. Trump, I can't imagine the New York Times using them to describe women. First of all, hello, did you just assume all of women are actually gendered women? Did you just genderize all women? That's a crock. And what do you mean women? Okay, this is a binary issue, New York Times. This is highly offensive. Highly offensive. Mr. Trump announced the pardon, which he signed later in the day. It was this afternoon around 2 o'clock, I think, Eastern, during a heavily political event at the White House. Well, they're all political, dummy. It's the White House, for Christ's sake. At which he again disparaged mail-in voting ahead of the November election. The announcement also appeared to be an effort to distract from the Democratic National Convention. Well, Jesus Christ. We don't need to distract from the convention. It starts in a half hour from now. It's 8:30 here as I record this. And last night, if you saw anything about it, it was an unmitigated shit show. You had my own governor in Michigan mouthing the words motherfucker about Shark Week. You had Beetlejuice making eyeballs on Twitter. You had, what was her name? Big Mike was giving a speech. There's not enough powder you can put on her. There's not enough foundation you can put on a neck to hide an Adam's apple. But anyways, quote, she was never pardoned. Did you know that? She was never pardoned, Mr. Trump said. Mr. Trump, how about you name him as the President Trump? New York Times, bigots. You don't agree with what he says, so you disrespect him, that's bigotry. Literally by definition. You can't accept someone with a different point of view. New York Times, that's bigotry. Bigot. Mr. Trump, that's President Trump. That's Mr. President Trump. That's Dr. Mr. President Trump prescribing red pills. Quote, what took so long? He said. Mr. Trump teased the pardon as he traveled on Air Force One on Monday, telling reporters he was going to erase the conviction of someone very, very important. Which, of course, you had the wheels spinning. Everyone's like, ooh, it's going to be General Flynn. And they were like, well, General Flynn's not been convicted. It's going to be who? Oh, maybe, well, Roger Stone, he was pardoned. So who else could it be? Was it going to be Manafort? It was going to be Assange. Oh, that's what it's going to be. Tim Pool thought he was going to be. He stayed up all night. Braiding his navel hair, thinking it's going to be Julian Assange. He's going to get pardoned. Nope. Susan B. Anthony, the actual hero that we need to be considering right now as we head into the election. Someone who really understood what women needed in their lives and how to get it. And that was by voting with their actual self-interests and not what they were told by a corporation. And so, interestingly enough, if you have a mega corporation, if you have a big company telling you this is the way you need to vote, or this is going to be really, really, really bad, they're probably just telling you what they want to happen for them. And then you got to ask who serves them. Quote, she was guilty for voting. Mr. Trump again. Mr. Trump, come on. This is what he's saying today. And, quote, we're going to be signing a full and complete pardon. Unlike the other people the president has pardoned, well, now he's the president. Anthony, Susan B. Anthony, that is not someone whose work Mr. Trump has spoken of during his campaign or his presidency. Right, because you guys realize Mr. President Trump often delivers on more than what he campaigns on. He says it often in rallies. He says, I'm the only president to have delivered more than what I told you in a campaign. And that is a fact. She is also increasingly a divisive figure. Well, why is that she was not divisive before, but she's becoming increasingly divisive? Why? Well, because she was anti-abortion, so now she's been adopted by anti-abortion forces. You mean she was always anti-abortion and you don't like it. That's what that means. Well, she was also criticized for relegating black suffragists to the sidelines. If you are running a team, if you're running a team sport, and you say, hey, there's liability in our movement, or there's liability on this line, or what have you, you can imagine she, being the quarterback of the movement, would say, you need to be here, you need to be there. I'm not going to make any more excuses than that, other than to say, I wasn't there. I'm not the one who won women's rights to vote. So I'm going to leave that one up to Miss Susan B. Anthony, and I'm not going to criticize her for how she did it. Not going to do it. On Tuesday, Marjorie Dannensfelser, that's a name, the president of the Susan B. Anthony list, an anti-abortion political group, and Cleta Mitchell, a lawyer who represents conservative groups, were in attendance as Mr. Trump made the announcement. So you saw all the women behind Mr. Trump. Again, Mr. President Trump, you can imagine that those are some of the women with him. Okay? This goes on for a while. Mr. President Trump has made degrading comments about women. Well, some for sure. And Mr. Biden himself, on Tuesday, surrounded by several female supporters, Mr. Trump declared that, quote, women dominate the United States, unquote, and complained that the coronavirus pandemic has darkened the economic picture for women. And that's super true. When you look at World War II and you look at the economic ideal for women, it was not to enter the industrial workforce. It just simply was not. But that's what was needed. And it did set women back. And you saw women succeed again in the 50s and 60s, less so the 60s, and definitely less so the 70s. 80s were a disaster. We've gotten better. We'll just say that. It's gotten better across the board for every single cut, splice, demographic, and intersectionality that you can think of. It has gotten better. And you remember the gay movement on YouTube 10 years ago, or what have you, however many years ago, where it was the, it gets better thing. You could tell that to anybody now, and it's true. Listen, if you hold on to your seats, if you buckle your seatbelt, you pull the lever for Donald Trump in November again. If you didn't in 2016, you have redemption this time. You can still do it. If you did it before, you can double up, son. You can pull that lever, and your wildest dreams will come true. That's no joke. And you can tell because the media hates it. The media will tell you that Susan B. Anthony now bad. Orange Man bad, Susan B. Anthony bad, everyone fucking bad. Anyone that is good that Donald Trump then says, hey, that's a good person over there. Bad. Unreal. It's almost time for the DNC, so go check that out, because I'm sure to be fantastic, but just see that I'm not wrong here. Everyone criticizing the Democrats, except for the Democrats themselves, of course, which is why Susan B. Anthony doesn't even deserve your I voted stick. First of all, she's a bitch. First of all, she's a trifling ass bitch. Seriously. Come on. Like this video. Tell me what you think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed. And then share this out. Share it somewhere. Post it on like a Pottery Barn comment section. And do everything else that you can do to keep America afloat.